You're listening to the Seahawks Insiders.
Geno looks, going to lay it up over the top. Got a man out there. It is locking. He has got it. Touchdown, Seahawks.
Getting you ready for Seahawks football every Sunday.
Hurts drops back, has time, loads up, throws. A.J. Brown, the defense. It's intercepted. Does he keep his feet in? He does. Seahawks ball.
Presented by Delta, the official airline of the Seahawks. Now, here's your host, Jen Mueller.
And we are broadcasting from the Seahawks podcast studio, presented by Sony, an official partner of the Seattle Seahawks. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, John Boyle.
Merry Christmas to you as well.
Have you gotten all the Christmas shopping done?
I think so.
Well,
I hope. I mean, at this point, I'm just going to say yes, because even if we forgot something, it's a little late.
Yeah, it's a little bit late on that front. I do feel like, everybody's like, oh, yeah, what are you doing for the holiday week? I was like, I'm working. It's not even a normal work week.
Yeah, it's a more condensed
It's a harder work week on that front. And I know you and I were kind of feeling the pressure to get things done, to do our homework, to get prepped for Chicago. And you know what? The Seahawks, well, everybody in the building is in the same boat, too.
At the end of the day, football doesn't rank first on the hierarchy of needs here. So it's really important for our players and our coaches to be able to be home with their families. So we'll start later on Thursday, come in around 11. Hopefully it's not ideal, but it should be enough time for them to spend time with their families and they can get out of here tomorrow night.
Okay, two things. One, I think it might be ideal because all of those with small children are going to be up at like 5 a.m., and then coaches are just going to take off about the time that you have to start cleaning stuff up at home. So I think it
not
actually
ideal for their partners.
For their
at
partners,
home, yes.
Right. I actually think they might be getting a pretty good deal on that. My second thing is I really love that he brings up hierarchy of needs, which got me thinking about this. John, what is included on your Christmas hierarchy of needs? Like, is eggnog on that list?
Oh, there's some
Are
eggnog.
Cookies? Really?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I try it every
Not for me.
single
More
year.
the kids like it. I like it. A little splash in the coffee is good.
I used to love an eggnog
But
latte.
not like a cocktail or
I
anything.
keep trying to make it a cocktail. You know me, folks. Like, I keep trying.
Can we add
and
booze to it?
I
Let's see.
can't. And even then, I'm like, this is too much. I worked with a colleague for years.
Mm-hmm.
Eggnog season was his season. He would stock up. He has, I kid you not, probably 8 cartons of eggnog. And did you know that it can be frozen?
Ew.
I know.
No.
Just-
I mean,
I know.
anything
Thanks to my
can be
colleague,
frozen.
Neil Stover.
Should you?
Well, if you want eggnog in June, apparently you freeze it and then you thaw it out in June.
Nah.
Okay.
No,
well, I
thanks.
just thought, okay, so then what goes on your hierarchy of Christmas
Christmas
needs?
cookies for sure.
Are there special Christmas cookies?
I mean, depends. We let the kids help dictate that.
Oh,
My oldest, she's 9. She's getting into baking a little bit. So she and her friend who were over yesterday baked some peanut butter chocolate chip cookies. They're not really Christmassy, but they were delicious.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah. So.
Anything else? Christmas movies?
Yeah, I mean, Elf for sure is
Yep.
a favorite. And the kids are old enough that they like that now too. Some of the jokes go over their head, but yeah, there's a few that we like.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I just thought it would be like a holiday version.
What about the biggest question? Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
I knew you were going to bring that one up. We have a Christmas movie conversation coming up later. Let's not jump to that one right now.
Sorry.
Let's, in fact, go backwards just a little bit, John, because last week we laid out a pretty good case of what the Seahawks needed to do to get a win against the Vikings. And boy, they were so close and within striking distance. Late in the fourth quarter, unfortunately, they come up short. Now they don't control their own destiny, which does make it a little bit more challenging moving forward.
We had our opportunities. We had our opportunities to win the game. You got to give the Vikings a lot of credit with their track record in tight games like that, being able to play well when it matters most, and we fell short. So we got to move on. We got to go. Kind of the destiny is out of our hands right now, and that stings. But we got a lot to play for still. And like we're talking about this morning with our staff, like we're just going to keep hammering away until this thing cracks. And I think it's right there. So we want to be ready when that happens, and hopefully we get an opportunity to get into the dance and go do some damage.
As Mike referenced there, like you got to give the Vikings credit, and like that, it's a good example of how fine the margins are in this league. If you're that team that's doing things right late in games, the Vikings haven't been. They're 13-3, not because they're 2, sorry, because they're out dominating everybody every week. It's they close out games well. They're finding ways to finish, and I mean the Seahawks were right in that game. If you just little things. You get a sack that would have made 3rd and 18, but unfortunately Byron Murphy caught a face mask. You get a 4-point penalty early in the game where Trey Brown's lined up offsides. You get, obviously the turnovers are big. So just these little moments where if you can just fix a couple things, you win that game, and we're having a totally different situation about, the playoffs first and foremost.
Well, and so let's talk about those playoff situations, because I would say in some ways it's very simple, and then in other ways it gets a little convoluted. So I'm actually just going to let you take
you
this
want me
one,
to
John.
go?
Yes, because
I just wrote about this.
The easiest thing to say is Seattle needs to win out and the Rams need to lose out.
See, it's not even that easy. The Seahawks do not need to win out. So we're going to start with a couple things. Easiest thing for Seahawks, Cardinals beat the Rams. If the Cardinals beat the Rams on Saturday, Week 18 is for the NFC West, and that's even with a Seahawks loss. Because in that scenario...
Assuming Seattle wins in Chicago. I know, I need it.
Seahawks do not have to win Chicago.
I'm going to back out of this conversation, folks, because I keep thinking I have it under control.
Okay.
I don't. John is schooling me. Okay, here we go.
First thing, Seahawks have to beat the Rams Week 18. We can start with that. There's no scenario in which you lose Week 18. So we're going to assume that for the sake of this argument. If the Cardinals beat the Rams, then the Seahawks-Bears game actually doesn't matter, because if the Seahawks go into Week 18 a game behind, if they both lose, then they win, they're tied, right? 9-8 in that scenario. First tiebreaker head-to-head, they'd be 1-1. Second tiebreaker, NFC West record. Because in this scenario, the Rams just lost to the Cardinals, the Seahawks would have the better NFC West record. They win that tiebreaker. If, however, they both win this weekend, so now the Seahawks are a game behind, however, the Cardinals or the Rams beat the Cardinals, now you go down the tiebreaker list, head-to-head split, conference or NFC West record would be split in that case. Again, Rams have beaten the Cardinals to get that game. Next is, I believe, what is the next tiebreaker? I had it right here. There's 5 of them. It's that we have to get through. Win-loss percentage in common games. That would also be split. Then you'd go to best win-loss percentage in conference games. Also would be split. So you get all the way down to the 5th tiebreaker. That is strength of victory. And that right now is what favors the Rams. So if both teams win this weekend, the Seahawks could be eliminated if some combination. The Rams basically need 4 victories from the Vikings, Bills, 49ers, Commanders, Bengals, or Browns. So conversely, the Seahawks need 4 victories from, let's see, wait for it. This is great radio. I know I have a list here. So Vikings play the Packers. Seahawks want the Packers in that game. Jets play the Bills. Seahawks want the Jets. Not great. Lions, 49ers. Lions win would help the Seahawks. Falcons, Commanders. Falcons win helps Seahawks. Broncos, Bengals. Broncos win helps Seahawks. Dolphins, Browns. Dolphin win helps the Seahawks. So to stay alive, not necessarily to guarantee Week 18 is winning in, but to even keep that scenario alive, the Seahawks need 4 of those to go their way. Again, this is if both teams win. Let's circle
John,
back to
my head wants to explode
Cardinals
right now.
win this weekend, and we're in great shape. So let's just go with that. Go Cardinals.
Okay, go Cards.
Yes.
Go Kyler Murray. Go Cards. I don't even want to think about the 5th tiebreaker, John.
Yeah, that's what
I was told there would be no math, and yet there's a lot of math.
Yes,
there is a lot of math on that.
If both teams win this week, we're down to the 5th tiebreaker, which again, strength of victory favors the Rams right now.
I'm going to be cheering so hard for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Is that game at home?
No. Saturday night in LA, and they're going to be missing some guys too.
Okay, well, I will dive into that matchup later, because currently we're diving into this matchup and broadcasting from the Seahawks podcast studio presented by Sony, an official partner of the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, so if you're thinking about how we got to this point against Minnesota, and to be fair, it's not just the Minnesota game, right?
No.
That's the game that you're talking about right now. You go back and you look at a Giants game, that would have made a big difference.
Yeah.
You look at different points in the season where things have turned, whether it was offense or whether it was defense. And also, John, you keep in mind that, NASA and I were just talking about this, the goalpost keeps moving, because they did turn the corner and they did put together a string of wins, and you did see the defense come on. But this is still the first year under a new head coach with new coordinators, with guys at a lot of new positions. And so I think some of this is to be expected.
Yes.
It's just hard, and it just hurts when you can also see that goal that appears to be right there.
Yeah, I mean, the phrase Mike used yesterday, we're just not as consistent as we want to be right now. Like, they've done some really good things. And again, by a lot of measures, yards per play, a lot of things they did in that game, they were the better team.
They were.
But you turn it over twice, you commit some very brutal penalties, and that's how you lose to a good team. So again, I think, Mike, I can't remember how he phrases, but the notion of like, hey, if we can find a way in, and again, we didn't control our own destiny, but if we can, we feel like we can be a feisty team in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't think he used the word feisty. That's my word, but still,
That's
like,
a good word.
They've got a lot of talent on this team, and when they're playing well, they are really cooking. But the consistency isn't there yet, and you don't like growing pains, and you don't go into a season saying, hey, we're going to have to live with this, but it's kind of the reality of a whole new coaching staff.
Absolutely. I'd also like to point out in that game, I was keeping track of time of possession at halftime.
Not great.
Totally favored the Vikings. Yeah. Seattle ends up coming up on top. You got to hold the ball for a long time against that team to be able to do that. We can sit here and talk about how we would evaluate the Minnesota game, but how about Mike McDonald on how he rates his quarterback?
Yeah, I said this morning, I thought he played good enough to win the game. He did some really great things. If we get a stop when we're up 4 in the last end of the fourth quarter, we're having a different conversation right now. Everybody wants to talk about the interceptions, and rightfully so. And those are things that we're working through. But I mean, one of the reasons that we're here with life, like I said last night, is I really felt that Geno's helped put us in this position. So I thought he played a strong game. I
said this to some of my coworkers in the press box after the game. I was like, this game will do nothing to change the opinion people have of Geno Smith on either side of it. He's a polarizing player this year, and I think I tend to lean towards he's a lot better than most people want to give him credit for, and he's at times this year dealt with tough circumstances. The run game hasn't always been there, whether that's lack of execution or just lack of attempts. The protection has been very up and down. At times it was better last week than we saw the week before, but there's still some key plays, including that last interception when quick pressure was a factor. So, but at the same time, you can say the turnover, each interception, you can break down whose fault was it. But as Geno Smith himself says, like, I'm the one who threw the ball, put it on me. And it's too many interceptions this year. So it's like, I think to Mike McDonald's point, like, the net has been very positive, and you're not an 8-7 team in playoff contention right now without what Geno Smith has done. But there's also a few games that with fewer turnovers you might have won.
Well, and you talk about polarizing and kind of what the numbers look like. He's 63 yards away from topping 4,000 passing yards for the second time in his career. He needs one more game of 300 or more yards to pass Russell Wilson for the most in a single season. I think some of this, and again, I'm not excusing red zone interceptions. Some of this is the style of offense that they are running does lend itself to the potential of more turnovers, right? If you're looking for big plays downfield, you're going to get them, because take a look at those numbers, right? Yeah. Take a look at what Jackson Smith-Njigba is doing in terms of top 5 receiving yards. Some of this is a little bit of a trade-off. Now, would you like to see him do exactly what Josh Allen did this year and cut down on those interceptions and turnovers? Sure. And it's just your first year in the system.
Yeah. Again, like, this is not a risk-averse offense where you're saying we're going to be very careful and not ever turn the ball over. Like, not that they want to turn the ball over, but I do think there's a little more of an element of, like, we can live with it a little more than what you might have heard from the previous coaching staff, with the payoff being some of the big plays we've seen. But yeah, it's, ideally you're not getting interception numbers up in the high teens. That's not great to live with. But yeah, I mean, he's going to, barring a really unproductive final 2 weeks, Geno Smith's going to end up breaking franchise records for completions, attempts, yards, and he's over 70% completion percentage. So he's done a lot of things to help this team win. Mike made this point as well, but if Byron Murphy doesn't catch a face mask there, or if Ernest Jones catches an interception that he had a chance at, we're talking the next day about another game-winning drive from Geno Smith.
Yeah. Exactly.
Instead of the interception that happened at the end of the game.
Yeah, and look, this offense feels like it's headed in a much different direction than where the Bears offense and team as a whole is heading, which is exactly where we are heading in the conversation next in this NFL season. Feel every play, every hit, every moment with the Sony 1000 XM5 noise-canceling headphones, the official headphones of the Seattle Seahawks. With premium noise cancellation, you are in the zone. No distractions, just pure football. Whether you are in your living room or on the go, you will never miss a beat with Sony headphones. In Chicago, however, they have missed just a few beats. The Bears have lost 9 straight games. They are 0-3 under their interim head coach. And this season for them started with a lot of expectations. Caleb Williams taken with the number 1 overall pick. And then you add local product or former UW standout, Rome Odunze with the number 9 pick. You've got Keenan Allen that they made the trade for. Like, you're thinking he has got some weapons around him. And instead, that's just not what it's looking like, John.
Yeah, I mean, they started 4-2. They won 3 in a row at one point, including a win over the Rams, and they went into their bye week 4-2 and looking like, oh, this is a feisty team going to be in the mix. And then, look, you don't go from having the first pick to totally flipping things in a year, usually for most teams. So I don't look at this team and say, oh, they're a pushover, and the Seahawks are just going to coast to a win. There is a lot of talent there, but they're still going through it. They're figuring it out, but there's, especially on the offensive side of the ball, there's some weapons there.
Well, but that offense is averaging less than 300 yards a game. The only team in the league who's putting up fewer numbers on offense, it would be the Giants. Caleb Williams, however, looks pretty impressive. He's averaging 6.5 yards per pass play, 6.1 yards per carry, and that's going to make it a little difficult for the defense to contain.
I think you got to approach it with, again, broken record, all 11 mentality. So how you marry the rush with the coverage, with how many you're going to send from what angle, what pass rush lanes you want to kind of fill up, and how you account for all the different pass rush lanes is always important. And it's not just 6-man, drop back pass or 5 out. It's you got to account for it in the play action game as well. So it's definitely at the top of at the top of your mind as you're going through a game plan for sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times you think of a quarterback who's a first-year guy and the team is struggling, the quarterback might be struggling, but he's playing some really good football late. He hasn't thrown an interception in 9 straight games, which for any quarterback is a hell of a streak. But for a quarterback, like you're behind, they've been playing from behind a lot, and
they've lost all 9 of those games.
And those are situations where generally you're having to put the ball at risk. And so for him to still be, he has lost some fumbles, but to be interception-free for a 9-game stretch, 3 of the last 5 games, his passer rating has been 103 or better. Like he's doing a lot of things really well, and getting sacked a lot too.
Well,
so there's a lot that's been a challenge for him, but he's still shown a lot of promise.
I got to say, so it's 19 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. That is remarkable for a rookie who has started all year long. 60 sacks, however, that is the most in the league by a large margin, and they're without their left tackle this week. He broke his leg against the Lions, or broke his ankle, against the Lions. So I think that's going to open the door for the Seahawks defense, maybe even for Jaron Reed to get in there and add to his sack total.
I think it's similar to Leo's curve from the middle of the season. Just we knew he was playing really good football, and it's great to see Leo kind of break open the stat category. I put Jay Reed in the same sentence of guys playing really good football. He's playing really hard. How they're working together in some of the pass rush stuff is pretty cool to see, and it's exciting to see him get some production.
Yeah, we have this conversation all the time, whether it was Leo earlier this year or maybe Byron Murphy at times, Jaron Reed now. Is like you can be playing really well on the interior defensive line and have a very quiet game statistically. So when those guys do get a chance to shine, it's always fun for them to kind of have those moments. And Jay Reed he's been good all year, but a sack, 2 pass breakups, 2 quarterback hits. And for those who didn't miss it, I don't know if the TV broadcast caught it or not, but he celebrated that sack with a nice little Michael Bennett shimmy, if you will, with Michael Bennett in the building being honored.
Yeah, just like minutes before they had shown him on the field.
Literally the previous break, he was like the legend of the week or whatever they honor, and then he gets the sack and does Mike B's little dance. It was great.
I do wonder if he would have done that regardless, or if he happened to notice it and just
I think that was a little like. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Mike was down there pregame talking to guys. Like,
I'm sure.
I'm sure it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't last minute right then, but I bet he had that plan going into the game.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Jaron has said that he was Mike's rookie.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that those guys have a really close relationship on that front. We are broadcasting from the Seahawks podcast studio, presented by Sony, an official partner of the Seattle Seahawks. And I tell you what, let's pause just a second for a word from our presenting sponsor.
Statistically, the world is losing color. Just consider all-white kitchens, beige baby nurseries, a sea of gray cars. But in the hundreds of destinations Delta flies to, you can rediscover color in the bright blue waters of Hawaii, the emerald green hills of Scotland, the berry pink cherry blossoms of Tokyo, and so much more. Sometimes opening your world is all it takes to open your mind, which is why when you fly Delta, your potential takes off when you do. Delta, official airline of the Seattle Seahawks.
I told you we would bring this back around to a Christmas movie conversation. I am so glad the Seahawks are playing in Chicago on Christmas because it leads, or the day after Christmas, because it leads right into a conversation about an all-time classic Christmas movie.
Yes.
John Boyle, what is it?
Christmas Story? No, what is it? I don't know. What?
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Gosh.
It's the hat Clark Griswold wears when he's putting up the Christmas lights, John.
It's been a while since I've seen that one. Okay?
What?
I've got little kids. That's a little,
Risque.
Yeah.
Well, they
So
wouldn't
we
understand half the jokes
we
anyway.
watch a lot more of the...
Can't see the lines, can you, Russ?
No.
They wouldn't even know what you were talking
True.
about.
That's true. Maybe I'll break that one out tonight.
I think it's actually a Christmas Story. It's supposed to be for Christmas Eve, right? And then, I don't want to tell you how to do Christmas with your family, but even if you consider Die Hard to be a Christmas movie, which that's fine, like I do, I can, right? I don't see any other Christmas movie that has more lines coming out of it that everybody knows outside of Christmas Vacation.
Yeah. Probably for the younger generation, Elf has replaced that. But...
Yeah, maybe. There are some good ones, but consistently, and the adult humor, because you know what? The older you get and the more time you spend with family at Christmas, the more you feel like all of those things in the house.
It starts to relate a little more.
Surprised, Eddie? I couldn't be more surprised if I woke up tomorrow with my head sewn to the carpet. There's so many things that I would love to just do an entire podcast on that one, but we're not.
That'll be
next
week.
You,
we'll
and
just
quote
Christmas
we'll go
Vacation.
back and forth quoting movies to each other, which will be very interesting. I wanted to give you my two favorite lines from that movie, but it is actually time to give me two things you need to see from the Seahawks to see a win in Chicago.
I want to end that interceptionless streak for Caleb Williams, and I think that's very much tied to the pass rush we talked about earlier and the sacks they've been giving up. It's so cliche for coaches to talk about the turnover battle, but the Seahawks record this year is so indicative of, I believe it's 1-6 when they lose the turnover battle this season, and they're 7-1 when they're even or better. Not even winning it, they're just even. They're winning games. So just be a little better with the ball and take it away from Caleb Williams a couple times.
Okay.
Number 2, boy, I feel like we've been saying this for so many weeks, but I want a run game. Yeah, I want to.
Which could get a little harder this week. That's on my list too. It could be a little more challenging.
We don't know Ken Walker's status, but let's get some run game going. You don't need to go out and run it every first and second down. I'm not saying just pound it into a wall with no results, but just get it going a little bit to even things out and take a little pressure off Geno in the passing game.
Yeah. I like that one. Also, continue to feed Jackson Smith-Njigba. He needs 8 receptions to set a single season franchise record, which that to me is amazing when you think about the wide receivers that we've had, and he's in year 2. But he's been a nice little safety blanket and weapon there. So
yeah, he's been fantastic. It's 8 straight games he's led the team in receiving yards.
Yeah, I did know that because I knew that he was over 70 yards in each one of those games. And they always seem to be big clutch catches. Yeah. It's pretty impressive. It's fun. It'll be fun to go to Chicago. Hopefully we come out with a win. And let's cheer on the Cardinals on Saturday so that we have the easiest path forward.
Yeah, so we don't have to do all the strength of victory
scenarios.
now.
Otherwise, we're going through this again next week, peeps. And nobody wants to see the look on my face when we have to go through this once again. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. We will see you next time.